the strategic opportunity here is to end Iran's influence and domination in the region once and for all. And that opportunity is sitting right in front of us. The two major proxies have been decimated. They're in a weakened position themselves. They're absolutely defenseless against any air campaign.
We're trying to get our heads around what has happened in Syria, what it means for the Syrians, what it means for the Middle East, what it means for the rest of the world. So far, at least, Syria's President Assad has avoided the fate of Libya's Muammar Gaddafi. He managed to get on a plane to Russia before the mob descended on him. That's Assad there. But as the example of Libya shows, getting rid of a brutal dictator can lead to chaos. In Syria, there are plenty of different forces involved. There are the rebels of the HTS that have taken Damascus, but also the group that calls itself Islamic State. And there's Kurdish forces as well, mixing all the outside actors, Russia, Iran, Turkey, America, and Israel. And it's hard to imagine that anything like peace and democracy will follow soon, though some people hold out some hope for that. Let's hear from Jack Keane. He's a retired four-star US Army general. He's chairman of the Institute for the Study of War. He's advised lots of presidents about the Middle East. And he's been talking to Times Radio and told us about HTS and its leader, Abu Mohammed al-Jalani.
An Islamic organization that had al-Qaeda derivative, and even al-Jalani, used to work for ISIS at one time. They've been governing in Idlib province for a number of years, and they have not displayed the terror tactics that al-Qaeda has displayed in terms of the population. They have got the cooperation of many groups to be able to achieve what they did. They're about 25,000 strong, and they've had somewhere in the neighborhood of six to eight other groups that have been working with them to be able to overwhelm these cities. It remains to be seen if there's something that can be worked out there. We have a model of something like this when Gaddafi was killed, and what came as a result of that is pretty much a failed state with factions opposed to each other. Yeah. This situation could be even worse. And of course, Israel has concerns. They moved troops in a buffer zone beyond the Golan Heights, and we have troops there who are there to make certain that ISIS doesn't rise again. Turkey had a hand in this. They look at these guys as kind of a client, and helping to get rid of Assad is what they wanted. I think Turkey could have played a more significant, responsible leadership role here than what they have played, because they're so preoccupied with the Syrian Kurds. So, and I do think there is a huge strategic opportunity that people are overlooking, and that is Iran. They've just lost their strategic asset, the Syrian client state. Can't achieve the domination and control of the Middle East that they want to have, much more so. They are truly in their most vulnerable period they've ever been. Losing that client state, they can't rearm. And Hamas or Hezbollah, both of those organizations are decimated anyway. Yeah. And the Iranians have lost their air defense system to be able to defend themselves. They have a very weak conventional military, hardly a navy, Air Force 1970s vintage, large army, poorly trained, poorly equipped, and poorly led. The only thing they have is rockets and missiles. Israel has diminished that, but they're all vulnerable to air defense systems. I think the Trump administration, in conjunction with Israel, could issue some ultimatums to Iran pretty early on, and that is, number one, maximum sanctions are going to be imposed that we're going to bring your economy to bankruptcy. And certainly there is the means to do that. Biden administration walked away from those full throttle means. Secondly, if you don't dismantle your nuclear system, we are going to take action, maximum sanctions, but also we, in conjunction with Israel, will dismantle your system ourselves. We want IAEA verification for you to dismantle it. Iran has never been in this weakened position. And what they fear, more than anything, is that population of theirs will rise up.
And the question will be, Jack, whether this great isolationist president, this president who comes in saying he wants to avoid the conflicts that have dogged America over the last couple of decades, whether he's willing to be threatening enough, allied with Israel, to try and achieve that. Because the question around Trump is he such a deal maker, a reluctant global leader that actually he just wants away from this region completely, or will he recognize that strategic opportunity you're talking about?
Well, I don't think he's an isolationist at all. I mean, he has acolytes around him that are, but he's not. I mean, look at the facts. He's the president that provided lethal aid to Ukraine. He's the president that got on the phone and told Putin in no uncertain terms, if you ever move across the border into Ukraine, your consequences are going to be quite severe. I'm not going to get into what he said after that, but that's the reality of it. Uh, the Syrian leader used chemicals on his people twice, and Trump bombed them twice. He killed Qasem Soleimani.
Even in the last 24 hours, he's sort of saying America needs to step away from this. He often has the rhetoric, and like you say, the people around him believe or
but
that.
You misinterpret it. But it doesn't mean that he's not willing to use a credible threat to compel an adversary to change. Okay. And he has done that. And he did it with Putin. He used kinetic force to stop Assad from doing chemical attacks. He put Iran on its heels with maximum sanctions and killing Qasem Soleimani. It's tragic. The incoming administration didn't take advantage of it. And as a result of that use of force, the Arabs began to line up with him, and that's what produced the Abraham Accords. Yeah. They thought they had a real player in the region. There's so much reaction to tweets and other things dealing with President Trump. I'm not suggesting that he doesn't bring some of this on himself by what he says, but you have to draw back and look at policy.
So is there a version of events, and maybe this is optimism, but this is a version of events where, if you look at the last 6 months, we've seen the dismantling of Iranian power in the region, Hezbollah being so soundly affected by what Israel has done to it. You've now got them, as you say, losing the client state of Syria. Could 2025 be a very significant year when it comes to the destabilization or the disintegration of the Iranian regime?
I think the strategic opportunity here is to end Iran's influence and domination in the region once and for all. And that opportunity is sitting right in front of us. The two major proxies have been decimated. They're in a weakened position themselves. They're absolutely defenseless against any air campaign. Why did they not retaliate against Israel, given the many promises that they made that they were going to do it? Because they took their air defense system away from them. Israel, I understand, did hit one of their nuclear sites just to tell them and give them the warning that they could come and get the rest of it. So I think they are there. And I don't think necessarily we would actually have to use force. But I think a credible threat by the Israelis and by the incoming president, it is worth a try to step up and put on the table a credible threat and see if we can change their behavior.
That's so interesting. So that's Jack Keane, retired 4-star U.S. Army general. Will Trump come in with a threat to Iran saying, unless you start doing A, B, and C, we are going to actually attack you, a credible military threat? Or is that, we were talking about what happened with the vote in 2013, is the era of intervention gone? It's gone in this country. It's maybe never further away than when Donald Trump actually arrives in power. But really interesting thoughts there from Jack Keane, a former Army general in the US.